I'm going to show you how to take photos like these without using any kind of filters or Photoshop or any kind of post-processing whatsoever. So I came up with the idea to simulate the look of something sort of like expired film and late leaks and things like that. Something you might get from like a filter, but I wanted to do it all in camera without any kind of post-processing work whatsoever. What I did use was these. They're colored pencils. That's right, colored pencils. I didn't actually color in on the photos themselves or anything. Don't be ridiculous. What I did is obviously less ridiculous and took these and held them right in front of the lens. So I have a camera here and I set the camera to a very wide aperture, like all of these here that were shot at f1.4. And I took these and I held them spread apart and I held them about like 2-3 inches away from the lens. And what happens here, because of the way depth of field works, is your subject who's a couple feet away is going to be in focus when you're focusing on them, but everything in front of the lens here is actually going to be blown out of focus. And at f1.4, the depth of field is so shallow that these colored pencils actually turn into like this kind of gradient color. They no longer resemble colored pencils. Let me show you how it works with these photos. So in this photo here is just me taking a picture in a mirror. No colored pencils or anything. This photo, you can see, I put colored pencils in front of the lens. Now, you might notice that there's a slight exposure difference between these. Well, that's because you're putting something in front of the lens, so it's going to block some of the light coming out. You're not going to lose any kind of focus or anything. It's not completely blocking out. Light is still making it into the lens, you're just blocking out some of it. But, like this photo here, you can see the exposure drastically decreases. I didn't change any of these settings. These settings are exactly the same. The only thing I changed was I held the pencils closer to each other. So you're going to have to compensate by either slowing down your shutter speed or bumping your ISO up. And like I mentioned, all the photos I shot were at 1.4, and this effect works best when you have a really wide open aperture. So this photo was taken at f1.4. If we stop it down to f2, you'll notice that it still looks really great, but it's slightly less of a gradient. And then once you stop it down to f2.8, you start actually kind of noticing the edges of the colored pencil. And even when we stop down to f4, the effect still looks really cool. It's just slightly different because now that you can see a little bit more definition, it's less of a filter kind of look and more of a harder edged kind of like framing with color. But if you start to stop down even further to f5.6 or f8 or anything like that, the effect kind of fades away and it just looks like you're holding colored pencils in front of the lens. Which, granted, you are, but you don't want the photos to actually look like you're holding colored pencils in front of the lens. Also note that this is on a 50mm lens. The longer the lens, the better because, well, the way physics and the way lens and depth of field works and things like that. So, for example, this photo here is taken on an ultra-wide-angle lens. This is at 16mm at f2.8. Even though it's at f2.8, which is a relatively wide aperture, you can clearly see the colored pencils. There's no way to hide the fact that you are just holding colored pencils in front of the lens. So you kind of lose the effect on ultra-wide-angle and fisheye lenses. So just something to note if you're going to try this out on your own. If you don't have an f1.4 lens, then that's fine. An f2, f2.8 still works. You might not get your desired effect on the wider end of the spectrum. Now you might be wondering, well, why even bother with this in the first place? I could just, apply an Instagram filter. You could, but this allows you to have greater control over exactly how you want the color and everything to kind of look. And so you can mess around with the way your filter works. Plus, this also saves you time. You don't have to do any kind of post-processing work. And this is just way cooler. And if you do this in public with like a client or something, they're gonna be like, why is he holding colored pencils in front of the lens? And then they see the photos and they're like, oh, you're a genius. You can also do something like with this photo here, the little white bit at the end of the frame there, that's actually my finger at the bottom of the frame. and because I'm pale as fuck, it kind of looks like light is leaking in from the bottom. If you're not as pale as I am, you could always use like a white colored pencil or something white just to create a very similar effect. I think it looks cool. Plus, you can mess around with the way it works. And if you want to get like super hipster with it, get a film camera, get expired film, and also do this with the finger thing and the colored pencils in front of it, and then you get like, I'm pretty sure like a portal opens and there's like a rift in space and time. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope you found this entertaining, enlightening, or otherwise enjoyable, or some other E-word. And if you did, hit the like button, because that shows me that you liked the video or you liked this idea. And, you know, if you do end up trying this out on your own, then let me know. Hit me up on social media or email me or put a link into the comments below or in the website. I love seeing what other people do with different kind of techniques and things like that. And you know, maybe you can figure out something creative that I didn't think of before, and then I'm gonna steal that from you. So that's cool. And if you want to see more of these videos, go ahead and hit subscribe, and you'll be alerted to more when they come out. But until the next video, I'll see you later.